I'm Dylan.
And I'm Keon.
And this is Trust Your Doctor, that podcast where one button press ruins the next 36 years of our lives. Because this week we watched The Girl Who Waited.
Written by Tom McRae.
Directed by Nick Horan. Horan.
And aired on September 10th, 2011.
Tom McRae back at it again with the white everything. Wow. I actually read that the reason why everything is white in this story is because of budgetary issues.
Yeah, I read that this was supposed to be the Dr. Light story of the season.
Right.
Which, yeah, I guess it is, but, I mean, compared to the other Dr. Light stories, like Midnight and, I'm forgetting the other ones, but...
Not Fear Her, Love and Monsters.
Right.
It was sort of one.
Yeah, but what was last season's one? I forget what it was.
Did last season have one?
Last season had the Lodger, which was Companion Light.
I don't
and
remember
Dr. Heavy
being a really Dr. Light episode last season. I'm going to go with no.
Either way, this one, I mean, I wouldn't have guessed that this was the Dr. Light episode or a Dr. Light episode, considering I guess they just dropped the idea of doing one per season. I wouldn't have guessed that if I hadn't read it. Because he's in it. He's a major player in it.
Well, because it wasn't originally written as a Dr. Light episode. It was written
as a doctor
just as a regular
in the episode.
Yeah. And then when Moffat was like, we're going to backstop this with Closing Time, which is a Companion Light episode, and features the return of Craig.
Yeah, I spoiled that Craig comes back.
Ah, bummer. I already knew that you spoiled it somehow. I think because you spoiled it like on the last episode that Craig was on, I think.
I don't know. Did, I forgot.
But I knew that you spoiled it. Anyway, that's a bummer because that's a big surprise. It's actually not a big surprise at all that he comes back.
It's in the thumbnail. Like if you scroll through on Amazon, he's there, front and center.
Thanks, Amazon. Kind of like how Amazon accidentally uploaded The Witchfinders 5 days before it was supposed to air this season. And there was this big conspiracy theory on the subreddit because they were like, is Amazon upset because of that obvious Amazon allegory in the previous episode where the Amazon like stand-in is a galactic space tyrannical company? Anyway, Tom McRae didn't write this as a Dr. Light episode. He wrote it as a regular episode, but then because they're backstopping it with Closing Time, he decided instead to just modify one thing in the story, which is to make the Chen 7 virus only affect beings with 2 hearts. And then henceforth, the Doctor was confined to the TARDIS for the whole story.
He's still in it to a pretty big extent. He's still a major player in the events of the story. Yeah,
because the only other change that came about because of that was instead of the Doctor delivering his lines straight to Rory, he delivers them through the glasses. All the lines themselves are the same. They're just delivered differently now. And in this way, apparently they only needed to get Matt Smith in for like a day of recording on the TARDIS set, and a day in the Appalachia set, and then a day or 2 in the voiceover room to record his lines. So, which apparently reduced the amount of time he had to film for this episode by a lot.
Yeah, I would imagine. That's really the only interesting thing that went on behind the scenes for this.
Well, I read a brief reference on a website that this was commissioned as part of like a competition between 5 scripts for this slot this season. Although I could find nothing to back that up, and I could find no further information about that claim. So to say I'm skeptical would be an understatement.
I mean, even if 2 sites say it, like one of them could have just got the info from the other.
Well, yes. But I was hoping for...
Even if doesn't say it, they could have just all referenced one thing.
Yes, but I was hoping for like some information on like what the other scripts were, because I feel like that, or who wrote the other scripts, I feel like that would have lent some credibility to the statement, but I couldn't find anything.
Sure, I mean, it could just be a more elaborate lie.
Okay, but everything everything could be an elaborate lie.
Yeah.
Who's to say it's not?
Yeah. Maybe all the info that we've given on this podcast has been incorrect.
An elaborate lie? What if Doctor Who doesn't really exist and was willed into being when we started this podcast and everyone just thinks it existed the whole time because of a psychic filter or something?
Well, remember, Doctor Who was created by people from the future going back in time and recreating it based on Doctor Who podcasts. Remember that theory we came up with?
I had tried to forget it, but now you've brought it back up.
It's true.
It's true that I was trying to forget it, or the theory is true?
The theory is true.
According to whom?
Me.
All right, well, apparently you're the foremost expert on this, so...
Yeah, I mean, no other info out there about it, so you have to trust me. No.
All the other sites could have just gotten it from you, though. Well, all joking aside, Tom McRae apparently had another script that got rejected by Russell T, which I found out because Russell T was like, it's too similar to The Unicorn and the Wasp, so I'm going to write Midnight instead. Yeah, apparently Midnight replaced Tom McRae's other script. And if you didn't know, Tom McRae wrote Rise of the Cybermen and Age of Steel back in Series 2.
Way back. A couple years ago. 4 years ago?
Yeah?
4 or 5.
4, I think. Maybe 4.5.
This is a much better story.
Yeah?
I actually barely remember Rise of the Cybermen / Age of Steel.
It had
that moment for Mickey, which is kind of like how this one has that moment for Rory. We're on to you, McRae.
Are we?
Your 2 scripts for this show.
Only 2 scripts, I think. I think after this he doesn't come back.
Huh. It's a shame. It's a real shame.
It is a real shame. Because this is my favorite story from this season, so...
Yeah, this is one of the best new Doctor Who stories.
Yeah.
Like
it really
top 3.
Is. It really is.
Yeah.
I really like this story, like, a lot. Anyway, I guess that's a good segue to get right into it, because the Doctor and Amy and Rory land on Appalachia, and they're all saying Appalachia, and they're like, why are we going here, Doctor? And it's like, it's the number 2 best destination for vacation travelers in the galaxy. And I think Amy asks, well, why can't we go to number 1? The Doctor says, well, everybody goes to number 1, which is apparently a planet of coffee houses, I guess.
Yeah.
So they land.
The Doctor just opens the door and he's like, behold, the majestic landscapes, beautiful mountains, dangerous cliffs of Appalachia.
And it's the Apple store.
Yeah, I guess that Apple product placement is still around.
I mean, we didn't quite mention this at the beginning, although we alluded to it. Everything is white because of budgetary constraints. Tom McRae apparently had to go and edit his script because Moffat was like, look, we don't have the budget to do a lot of really intense set work for this episode because I stole all the budget from my own stories. And so Tom was like, okay, I'll just make everything white. Apparently his design for the handbots, I found out because there's a little clip from, there used to be a show called Doctor Who Confidential, which would go through all of the behind-the-scenes information that is apparently impossible for us to find now. And the BBC posted a little clip from their episode on this episode. And it's got Tom McRae seeing the handbot designs, and he's like, well, see, in my original script, they were a lot more blocky, and they were kind of just people wearing clothes, like wearing regular clothes with white hands. But he says, but these look way cooler. These look way, way better than anything I could have imagined.
Yeah, because now they're the Raston warrior robot.
I completely forgot that existed until right now.
But I mean, I think the set design worked out well for this. It looks really cool, especially the ways in which some of the things are shot. Especially because, this is 2011. This is sort of the height of when that Apple future look was like really cool and what everyone was trying to do.
It's still really cool, just nobody's trying to do it anymore, except Apple.
Yeah, I guess that's true,
But I think, Tom McRae was like, yeah, this gives it a really unique vibe that I pretty much couldn't predict from my script, so I think it worked out really well. And I think it worked out really well.
Yeah, I agree. The Doctor and Rory, they encounter this door that has 2 buttons.
Well,
like an elevator type thing.
So this is the moment where Amy forgets her phone and makes the most critical mistake in Doctor Who history because she accidentally leaves her phone behind in the TARDIS. Oh no.
So the Doctor and Rory press there's two buttons, one with a green anchor and one with a red waterfall.
Mm-hmm.
They press the green one and they go into a room. And
Well, Rory pushes the green one because the Doctor just tells him to pick a button, and Rory goes, I'm going to push the green one. Turns out Rory picked the right button, and Amy did not.
Yeah, didn't. I mean, what are, like, let's look at the logistics behind this for a second. Like, you encounter a door with a green button and a red button. Isn't it more likely that you're going to press the green one for, like, go or, like, you know...
Well, yes, but not only that. Imagine for a second that the buttons aren't colored. The green one is on top. Wouldn't you push the top one also? Like, wouldn't it be more likely that you'd push the top one? I feel like, at least personally, if I was presented with a button, two buttons in a vertical arrangement, I'd push the top one first. Yeah,
probably. I mean...
And Amy decides to buck all convention here and not only pushes the bottom button, she pushes the red button.
Well, maybe it's because she's a redhead, and red-themed things have to stick together.
Why do they have to stick together? What are they afraid of?
There's the anti-ginger movements out there. Ginger jokes,
For some reason, that made me think of the Red-Headed League from Sherlock Holmes. Did you ever read that one?
Probably.
It was a story about this guy goes to Sherlock and he's like, hey, I got hired by this guy who only hires redheads to do the secretary work, but when I showed up, no one was there. What's going on? And then Sherlock goes and figures it out, and I don't remember the resolution to this.
Yeah, I don't think I've read that one.
I think they were robbing a bank.
Oh, is this the one where they dig the tunnel?
Yeah, I think so.
And that's like the easiest one to figure out of all time?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I did read that one.
Anyway, she pushes the red button, and the Doctor and Rory, when they find this out, Rory is understandably exasperated by this.
Well, but the room she goes into looks very similar to the one that the Doctor and Rory went into.
It's pretty mirrored.
Much, yeah, right. And there is a mirror in both rooms, but it's also like a massive magnifying glass.
Kind of like comically huge when Rory's carrying it around later.
I don't think it's made to be carried. Well, actually, is it?
No, because when they break it off, that's the small act of vandalism that...
Oh, right.
Triggers the handbots.
Yeah. I guess you're not... Right, that's the visiting room, so they sort of...
Well, actually, I think you can carry it around the room. I think the thing was that, like, the Doctor modified it so that it would work outside the room, and that was the vandalism, because the Doctor does pick it up and walk around the room with it.
Right. The Doctor and Rory are confronted by one of the bots.
Yeah. Well, the Doctor first figures out what's going on because he contacts Amy, and she's like, "Oh, how's it going?" And then there's kind of like a fuzz effect, and then they contact Amy again. She's like, "I've been here for 3 weeks," which means I guess Amy does age 3 weeks in this story.
Yeah, she does. The Doctor explains what's going on very rapidly. Yeah, he does. Like, whoa, slow down a little bit, Doctor.
He figures it out. And I was like, wow, you figured that out on not a lot of information.
Yeah.
He does talk really quickly, though. I agree. Because he kind of just plot dumps. He's like, oh, 2 rooms, parallel time streams, moving at different speeds. You're moving quicker than us. That means we can watch all of your life in like 1 day for us. And Rory's like, wow, that's cruel. And Doc's like, no, it's a kindness. Kindness is a big theme throughout the story.
Right, because what this is, they did land on Appalachia. Mm-hmm. God, that name. But the thing is, the planet was quarantined because the Appalachians, who have 2 hearts, had contracted...
got a disease. Yeah.
Chen 7 disease, which kills you in a day. So
yeah.
Is this what that guy in New Earth... There's another New Earth connection in this. So I'm wondering if that's what that guy had in New Earth.
I was wondering that. That's like my first note in the story. Kind of like that disease in New Earth.
So to not counteract, but to deal with this disease, they created this facility where there are 2 time streams, one at the normal speed.
It's the green anchor. And the red waterfall room compresses and slows down time. Yeah, that time. So the thing is that that timeline is running quicker relative to the green anchor because the Doctor says, oh, we can watch their entire lifetime in 1 day of our time.
Yeah. So they go in there and that 1 day is stretched out to, their entire lifetime or whatever. Mm-hmm. Which is where Amy is.
Damn, Amy pushing the button. The reason also why she pushes quote the wrong button unquote. The story should have been called The Wrong Button. That would have been
called Rory's Choice.
There are a lot of parallels between this and Amy's Choice.
Yeah, there are.
There are parallels between this and a lot of things, actually. Is where I was going with that is because there's a button in the green anchor room that lets you back into the reception room, but there isn't a similar button in the red waterfall room. So, the Doctor and Rory could just leave.
You wouldn't want those quarantined people getting out or whatever.
Yeah.
They don't go into this at all, but you got to wonder sort of the backstory of all this. Like, were there protests? I'm sure people didn't want to be quarantined and have to live out their entire lives in this facility, right? Sure, it wasn't a smooth process. We don't know anything about the Appalachians.
We don't know anything about them, but also, basically, Appalachia is like, look, we'll provide all your food, all your entertainment, and basically everything for free until you die. Amy is basically not charged for her stay here in this facility.
We never see her loved ones again outside of the
magnifying glass.
Right.
But you could also go to the roller coaster zone, modeled after Disneyland Clom.
Yeah, exactly. They describe it as modeled after Disneyland, which would...
The Disneyland on Clom, though.
Right, which would spur people to protest,
Really, it would spur me to wonder why Disneyland expanded to Clom. And in what decade this was set that Disneyland is on Clom.
You're skeptical of Disney expansion? It's kind of a shock, but whatever.
I'm not skeptical of that. I'm skeptical of Disneyland being on Clom.
I'm skeptical of, when they go far in the future in Doctor Who, where's the mouse? Where's the Big M owning everything?
Dead.
But yeah, Amy is in a bad situation, so Rory goes back out and presses the red waterfall button and goes into the room, but Amy's not there.
Yeah, so he goes back to the green anchor room and is like, oh, she's not there. And that's part of the reason why the Doctor figures out that it's different time streams. The Doctor then uses a sonic screwdriver to lock the magnifying glass on Amy, and then they steal it. And the handbots are like, we're coming for you. And they run into the TARDIS. And the Doctor hooks it into the TARDIS because he wants to basically use it to land in Amy's time stream.
The Doctor also modifies these glasses that let him see whatever Rory is seeing when he wears them. Mm-hmm. Or I guess just let him see whatever the lenses of the glasses are looking at. Because he can't go into the quarantine zone or else he'll die.
Yeah. The Doctor basically tells Rory to do all the dirty work for him, and Rory just kind of goes along with it.
Which, at this point, they don't know, the devastating events that are about to happen. So they don't know how big of a deal this is going to be.
We see Amy run through the facility for a bit, and
she talks to the interface.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, a computer designed to give the people there an easier time, or just give them whatever they want.
Before I forget, guess who voices the interface? It's someone who was a major character in the Harry Potter movies.
Yeah, I looked this up, but I completely forgot who it was.
The voice of the interface is played by Imelda Staunton, who, if you don't recognize the name, plays Dolores Umbridge.
Yeah.
In Order of the Phoenix, I think it is. It's been so long since I've watched Harry Potter. But I didn't recognize her voice at all.
No, neither did I.
I read that she's one of the few actors/actresses to have appeared in Doctor Who is Oscar nominated.
Huh. Interesting.
I think Michael Gambon is another one. I think Richard Hurt as well. And Bill Nighy. And Richard E. Grant, I think. Richard E. Grant plays a character from the classic series at some point. I'm not going to tell you who it is, because it's a nice big reveal there. But anyway, she talks with the interface, and the interface is like, I'm here to make your stay great. She's like, cool, thanks.
She's confronted by one of the bots who is going to give her...
antibiotics of some sort.
Right. Which is going to knock her out.
Well, it's also probably going to kill her. Because the doctor's like, look, any medicine they give you will probably, maybe not kill you, but will gravely injure you because you're not from this planet.
So it turns out if the bots can't do that, they resort to like method 2,
which is like machine gun fire of these needles. The instant this handbot's head opens up and it's like instigating delivery method 2, and the instant the head opened up and revealed all these freaking needles that it just shoots at you, I was like, who designed this?
This reminded me so much of some thing. I don't remember what it is, but it's some like actually very famous type, mainstream type, robot or alien design, like people know, and I don't remember what it is. The face like opens up and there's this massive like arsenal of weapons inside of it or whatever. Oh, maybe it was the Iron Giant, but I don't think so.
I don't know. Unfortunately. I just
anyway.
remember thinking, who designed this?
It's a kindness. I mean,
Is it? Freaking machine guns needles at you. Kindness. Rapid fire kindness.
So Amy runs into sort of a garden area, and this is where she learns that touching the handbot's hands to each other
short circuits them.
Right.
This garden set was reused later on for a major set in 12th Doctor's era, and everybody speculated that it was related somehow, but it just happened to be that they filmed it in the same location.
The lobby area that has the only like on-screen character in this who isn't the Doctor, Amy and Rory, is actually the lobby from New Earth.
Yeah.
Which is interesting because it doesn't look very much like it. So they did a good job sort of masking that, I guess.
Yeah, they actually did, because I didn't notice that at all when it was on screen.
I read that this has this episode story, I guess, has the fewest cast members since Edge of Destruction.
Yeah, and the third lowest in all of Doctor Who, and the second lowest in the reboot, because it's beaten by an episode quite a while from now.
Huh.
Until that episode aired, though, this was the lowest of the reboot and the second lowest in the series. Because it's only got the Doctor, because the cast list is the Doctor, Amy and Rory, the lady at the reception desk, and the voice of the interface. Those are the only 5 people credited. Even though technically thousands of people appear in this, because when Rory steps out of the TARDIS, the Doctor attunes the magnifying glass to see like all the people in the facility, because they're like, where are all the people? Turns out like all of their timelines are slightly off from each other, so they don't all actually meet each other.
Yeah, was it... Maybe I'm just making this up, but wasn't it like... You're with other people, you're just not with everyone at once, right? I don't think they just isolate people.
It seemed like they isolated people, since Amy was pretty isolated. Wasn't anybody in Amy's.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know if that was sort of an anomaly or not.
I just like to think that this facility that gives you, quote, kindness just likes to isolate you and put you in solitary and confinement for...
the rest of your life.
The rest of your life.
You can go crazy from that.
Yeah. Yeah. But
it's a kindness.
You have access to your loved ones when they come visit you through the magnifying glass. So... Yeah,
that's true, I guess. You ever watch a video of, like, solitary confinement in prisons?
No, thank you. I watched Catch a Predator, though. Which I only remember because I watched it, like, the other day, and I was like,
The new one? The rebooted one?
You mean...
Revival?
You mean...
Chris Hansen's...
What's it called? It's called
Chris Hansen's something or the other.
I knew the name because they put all those episodes on YouTube, so I did actually watch them in the past week. I don't remember what it's called now. It's called Something with Chris Hansen. That's what it's called. So...
Yeah.
And he always goes, this is an investigation. They're like, what? And he's like, I'm Chris Hansen. It's pretty good. One of the episodes is really awkward because the guy comes in and Chris Hansen's like, wait a minute, I recognize this guy. Turns out they rode the same subway train for like a year. Anyway.
Amy is running around trying to avoid the bots, and she makes it to...
the time engine.
Right, the time engine, which is what's controlling all of this. Controlling
all these timeline shenanigans.
God.
And the bots can't see her while she's standing near the time engine, and she kind of realizes that the exhaust from the time engine shields her body.
She goes
signs.
into this sort of vent first, and it looks like she's trying to climb into the vent, but she can't. But like you said, the bots aren't able to recognize that she's there.
The interface explains this. The interface is like, yeah, the exhaust mangles their sensors. So Amy's like, wow, cool. And she writes a message on the door. It says, Doctor, I'm waiting. And then we see the Doctor and Rory land. More like crash land, but they land. And Rory gets jumped by a samurai who holds a sword to his neck and is like, in sort of Bruce Wayne turns his voice into Batman. He's like, I waited for 36 years. And Rory's like, I don't know who you are.
Where's Rory?
Where's Rory? Where's the Doctor? Where is he? Where is he?
You want to know how I got these scars? Otter Pops. I'm sure I've made that joke on this podcast before. It's just too irresistible not to make.
Just like Otter Pops are irresistible. Anyway, then Rory's like, I don't know who you are. And then Amy takes her mask off and is like, I'm Amy. 36 years after you left me, you bastard.
And this future version of Amy is played by Karen Gillan.
Yeah.
And she does a really good job of it. I read that they were originally going to get someone else to do it.
Right.
But Karen Gillan was like, no, only I can play Amy. No.
She pulled a Sylvester Stallone, only I can be Rocky. No, she just lobbied really hard for it, and they gave it to her. She apparently, though, had to work with like a voice coach and a body coach to create this different kind of way of movement and talking that the older Amy would have compared to the younger Amy. Right, especially since this older Amy actually has been isolated for 36 years and in reality would probably go insane, but...
Right. But, I mean, even the makeup artists do a great job,
mm-hmm.
with the old makeup.
I mean, the whole costume looks great because it looks really cobbled together from
just
scraps and pieces. And I do kind of wonder where she got that sword from, though, but, I just kind of brushed that off. The Doctor,
probably one of the exhibits or whatever.
Probably one of the exhibits. I was going to say, because the Doctor and Rory land in, like, a room that's got, like, the greatest of cultural treasures from different places. It's got, like, the Mona Lisa in it, and all I could think of was, I bet that's one of the fakes from City of Death.
Wow. Bringing it back. But there are a bunch of other non-Earth objects as well, like that stone that looks like it just bleeds, like,
purple
blue
blood. Yeah. Yeah, Rory's like, the greatest of Earth, greatest of aliens, and the greatest of whatever that is. So Amy takes Rory back to her
lair.
Her like
Which
lair.
Is, she, I guess, established this the first day she was there because this is where she goes in and, writes on the door, Doctor, I'm waiting.
Yeah.
And I read that in a working draft, I guess, of this, the scene where Amy writes that on the door comes after you see the smudged version of it. Which is interesting. I mean, it doesn't really seem to make a difference, but...
Yeah, I don't think it makes a difference.
Yeah.
I could see it being kind of a slightly cool reveal if they put it afterwards, but I don't see any major benefit gained in doing it that way.
Yeah. So they get back to Amy's sort of hideout base, whatever it is, which looks very cobbled together, like her outfit.
Yeah.
And she reveals kind of how insane she's gone, but also that she pacified hates the Doctor, hates Rory, has pacified one of the handbots, removed its hands, drawn a face on its face.
Named it Rory.
Yeah,
I don't think she hates Rory so much as the Doctor specifically, since the Doctor's the one who was supposed to come save her. Rory's just along for the ride.
I mean, Doctor's done this twice now, right? The
first time changing her mind is for Rory, so I don't think she hates Rory.
Right.
She pretty explicitly says she's not doing it for the Doctor.
Yeah. I mean, the Doctor's done this to her like 3 times at this point. The first 10-year interval. And then there was that, 2.5 years?
Yeah.
In 11th Hour, and then now this 36-year period.
Well, Amy won't remember this, so... Doesn't remember being left behind.
Yeah, no, I mean, for this version of Amy.
Anyway.
And Rory's like, so, this was never supposed to happen. And Amy gets real pissed at this. She's like, 36 years of this, and you're saying it was all just, never supposed to happen or whatever.
Well, Rory says, this is the rescue. How could we have missed by so much? Doctor, this is your fault. And the Doc's like, it is my fault.
Doctor just doesn't know what to say here, kind of.
Yeah.
This kind of, I don't know. Well, we'll talk about this at the end, what this all implies for the 11th Doctor, and even Amy and Rory as well.
Well, the ending of this is a huge
revelatory moment for like how much of kind of not
a good guy
the 11th Doctor is.
Yeah.
But we'll get there. So Rory is like, all right, eventually I think he's like, we have to do this over somehow. We have to, get back in time and rescue my version of Amy, younger Amy.
My Amy. He calls her my Amy at first, and Amy's like, I am Amy.
And then, after he sort of talks to this Amy and he comes around, he's like, okay, yeah, you know what?
You're right.
We have to rescue you. We just have to deal with it.
She's like, no, I won't help you do it. And Rory's like, what? She's like, take me. If you want to take someone, take me, but I won't help you change it because then I'll have never existed. And Rory's like, yeah, isn't that a good thing? She's like, no, I'll be dead. Rory's understandably confused, but goes along with it. He yells at the Doctor, throws the glasses on the ground.
Right, because I forget, doesn't the Doctor say that they have to just do this over? They can't rescue the 36-year-old version.
Well, he says that they can. But,
I forget exactly.
But he explains that there's a way to rescue the young one if she can modify the time engines. They can shunt back to when they were supposed to land and rescue the young Amy. Basically, he tells Rory that he basically has to make a choice.
Right, and this is where the older Amy is like, I'll help you do it if I can come with you as well. I'm not going to travel with you. I'm just going to go off and do my own thing.
Well, that's only after... Because then the Doctor realizes the magnifying glass is still working, and he tells Rory this, and Rory then shows young Amy to old Amy, and she tells old Amy... They have this moment where they're talking about how
much they love Rory or whatever.
Well, first she starts it off with, when you meet a beautiful man and then you talk with them.
Biggles, the cat from 11th Hour.
Well, that, and then also
Return.
When you meet a beautiful man, you talk with them, and it's just so boring. But then you meet like an average man and you talk with them. And then
wait, you're forgetting the best part of this, where we learn that Rory faked being in a rock band and faked knowing how to play the guitar.
Hey, more credit to him. He went for it, okay? More than I can say about Amy. Amy was just like, I had so much male attention my whole life, but it was always Rory. I was like, wow. Okay, no, see, and then she describes Rory as having an average face. I'm like, wow.
No, okay, so I remember that line where she was like, I have got so much male attention or whatever it was. And I was like, all right, does that mean that like she knew a lot of guys or whatever? Or does that mean, because she says like, Rory always tried to be like this different person, right? He tried to fake being in a band and probably a bunch of other stuff that they don't mention too. So I wondered, was she saying like, I had so much attention from Rory and he was always just trying to impress me, be someone else or whatever, I don't think it's that. I think it's the former.
I think it's she just knew a lot of guys.
Yeah, I think
a lot of guys tried to sleep with her.
I think it's that as well.
Yeah.
Just wanted to put it out there as like a possibility, like a way to read this.
It's a very low
chance of
of being true. That
right. But they do have this moment where they're like, I always loved Rory or whatever, which is nice, I guess.
The power of love saves the day and ruins it shortly thereafter.
And the Doctor shows up and just throws a wrench in everything. We don't know what would have happened if the older Amy got into the TARDIS, but we'll get there. It's coming up very shortly. We're blazing through this episode.
Well, if you really think about it, not a lot happens.
No, yes, it's true.
The reason why this episode feels so dense is because thematically it's very dense.
Sure.
Yeah, it is.
It's true. I agree with that.
But
so the Doctor lies, and he's like, yeah, sure, we can bring both of them.
Yeah, because old Amy's like, look, when I was young, I saw the old version of me reject helping you, but I'm going to change history right now. And I was like, well, I guess you can because you're unpredictable and you're Amy Pond, and it's all nonsense about Amy being special or something. But then he's like, yeah, I guess we can have both. And he talks about like the TARDIS being able to sustain the paradox. And my note was, worked for the master. So, don't see why it wouldn't work for you. And the Doctor's like, well, we can figure it out. Let's just get both Amy's here at one point, and then we'll figure it out.
So I forget how they do this, but they mess around with some wires and stuff, and the
Doctor gives Rory instructions to dick around with the time engine.
Yeah, which he does.
Mm-hmm.
And the younger Amy materializes.
They're
She's like, oh
wow,
my
this is
God,
weird.
it's me. Older me.
Older Amy kisses Rory at one point, and I was like, that must be the most awkward feeling for Rory. It's like
Why?
kissing your significant other after they've aged 36 years. Because he says, like, I don't care that you're old. I care that you grew old without me. And she's like, wow. Anyway, just felt like it might be awkward for him, especially since she hasn't kissed anyone in 36 years. That she's kissing that Rory bot that she made, which would be weird.
I mean, I want to mention that Rory bot for a second. I mean, the face she draws on this thing is like, I don't even know what it's like. It's sort of a skeptical face, right? It's like, it's got his eyebrows like kind of turned up, like as if it's trying to say like, really? Or something like that, you know? You know
Like
what I mean?
the real Rory does every time the doctor comes up with a plan.
I guess, yeah.
Yeah, she says something like, oh, I disarmed it. And Rory's like, oh, how? And then he sees that he's got no arms. He's
Right.
like, oh. Also, Amy's built like a sonic probe.
She
Sonic
calls it a
screwdriver.
probe. It's a screwdriver.
She also hacked into the interface, which will tell her anything now, which is how the doctor figures out. We skipped a whole scene where they go back to the garden.
Right.
Rory gets knocked out by the bot, but Amy saves him. And this is when the doctor realizes they can use the time engine to bring both Amy's
Right.
into the same timeline.
Yep. Which they do, and they have to fight off a whole horde of handbots.
Well, this is kind of funny because old Amy tells young Amy to think it's like
Someone she
hockey
knew, you're right, someone she knew in
hockey,
school.
and so she's like, "Oh, hockey, go for the legs." But then she immediately like whacks the head off the next dude. I'm like, I don't think you go for the head in hockey. I don't think that's a legal maneuver.
You never know. Maybe Amy is severely injured or even murdered someone playing hockey.
Well, she did hang around with Mel's a lot, and Mel's got thrown in jail
Yeah.
quite a bit. So maybe that bad influence rubbed off on her.
Yeah, you gotta wonder what Amy and Rory were up to before they met the doctor. You know, were they
Murdering people, serial
petty
killers.
theft, or I mean, I don't think we're gonna go that far, but you know, maybe like petty theft or I don't know, muggings.
Maybe they were just like world-renowned celebrities. And everybody's panicking like,
Like,
Amy
what-
Pond gone missing? Question mark. People magazine, where is Amy Pond? And the doctor's just like completely oblivious to this fact.
FBI's most wanted, Amy Pond.
This is Dateline NBC tonight. We're talking about the mystery of Amy Pond. Where did she go? Who did she go with? And what is Roy Williams' connections to the whole event? Did he have a hand in it? Or was he just wrapped up in the plot?
God. But they get back to the exit.
Yeah, and then
And-
Amy goes down. Young Amy goes down. She gets touched by one of the handbots and she falls asleep. And then we see this kind of slow-mo scene where Rory's like, no!
Yeah, and this scene really made me wonder. Didn't look it up, but it made me wonder when 300 came out. Wasn't it like 2007?
Yeah, I think so.
So it wasn't around, it wasn't like 2010, 2011.
No, I don't think so.
Have you watched 300?
I've seen bits and pieces of it.
Then you've probably seen how, you know, in the action scenes,
Yeah.
there's constant slow motion, right? And this kind of, I don't know, rubbed me that way.
Did Zack Snyder do 300? Was that Zack Snyder?
I think so, yeah.
I think so. Because I think he did that, and then I think he did Watchmen after that, right? Or did he do Watchmen before? I don't know.
I have no idea. I think Watchmen was like 2010.
Yeah, so I think he did Watchmen after then.
Yeah.
And then he did Man of Steel after that. Then he did Batman v Superman. Then he started Justice League, and then Joss Whedon finished it. So Rory carries Amy, literally carries her to the TARDIS.
Right, because old Amy is like, you know, I'll cover for you.
I got your back.
Got your back.
And then she sees him
I'll
carrying
scratch
young
your
Amy.
back as you'll scratch, if you'll scratch mine type of situation.
But he doesn't. She sees him carrying the young Amy, and you can see this distraught look on her face. And the doctor, they get into the TARDIS, and the doctor's like, oh, it's just an anesthetic. And then he stands at the door and watches old Amy run towards the TARDIS, and then just rather cruelly slams the door in her face.
Ah, gotcha.
And Rory's like, what are you doing? We're taking both of them. The doctor's like, I lied. We can only take one of them.
And it's going to be this one.
It's going to be this one. And Rory's like, wow. And then the doctor basically puts Rory's hand on the door lock, and he says, okay, you know what? It's your choice. You pick. You can let her in,
clean up after my mess, Rory, please.
And
It's essentially what he's doing.
Rory calls him out on this.
Yeah.
Rory calls him out on his BS because he's like, this isn't fair. You're turning me into you. And the doctor just says, look, I'm sorry.
This is touching back to that thing that was introduced in Vampires of Venice and not really ever directly touched on again until now.
Yeah. Where Rory calls out the doctor on his Machiavellian ways, where the ends justify the means.
But also the thing of like the doctor turning his companions into not
Mini
only
me's.
worse people, which was touched on in the Russell T era, but yeah, mini doctors, I guess.
I mean, they did touch upon that in the classic series, like we mentioned, but it was always in like a positive context that like these people get better because of traveling with the doctor. You know, Nyssa joins the hospital ship. Tegan's like, I'm sick and tired of the violence, doctor. She's one of the few companions to also call the doctor out on his nonsense. Turlo finally gathers the courage to go home and face his fears. Ian and Barbara go home and become successful teachers. Susan gets married. Stephen becomes a king, right? Like all these people in general. Adric, of course, completely bit the dust. But, you know, in general, they end up in a better position than where they started.
Right.
But, like, this is Rory going, this isn't okay. Like, you're not a good person. What you've just done isn't good. And you're trying to turn me into you by making me make the choice between the two. But then old Amy relieves him of all of his duties by saying, just don't let me in, because if you let me in, I'm going to come in. But I saw the way you looked at her, and I knew it was never going to be me.
Yeah, she sort of, you know, takes the fall here, I guess. Lets another version of herself be with the doctor and Rory for those 36 years that she wasn't. And that was sort of the big moment of this scene for me, right? Is like, you know, the older Amy's like, all right, I'll sacrifice myself if it means that this version of me doesn't have to go through. Or like the version of me I want to exist is the one who didn't spend 36 years alone.
She basically tells Rory that she knows that this choice is hard for him and that she's making the choice for him and telling him not to let her in, which I think is also interesting. She says that she forgot how it felt to be so loved by someone, and she realized when he was looking at her how much he loved her and that he should keep that up and lock the door.
Yeah. Real sad moment. This is one of the few moments that Doctor Who like actually kind of got to me.
Wow.
Because then she runs back into the whole horde of handbots and dies.
Yeah. And the Doctor and Amy and Rory leave. I think it ends
on such a strange note.
It does. It kind of just ends. Because I think old Amy runs out into the horde and they dematerialize, and I think that ends it.
There's a shot of the Doctor like in the TARDIS, and he sort of walks away and just sort of looks back, and you think, and Amy kind of wakes up, and I don't know if she says anything, and then sort of just like it just cuts to the credits.
Yeah, well, to the next time trailer.
Yeah, right.
Hard cut to the trailer for next time.
Weirdly, the TARDIS wiki page for this episode mentions in the story notes that it says, like every episode of the 2005 series, this one features a next time trailer. It's like, really? Who thought it would be necessary to mention that?
I think that's on every page.
Really?
I've noticed it on multiple pages, yeah.
What the hell? Why is that there?
Because Doctor Who fans are nerds.
They have to know which ones feature.
Exactly.
God.
Because there's always the few that don't have trailers.
Right, there are some that don't.
So I guess they thought it was easier to just mention all the ones that do instead of the ones that
don't. But yeah, this is a devastating ending.
Yeah.
All the times that Doctor Who tried to make me care and it didn't work,
until
we're all
now,
leading up to this.
Where it
worked. But no, we can sort of touch on now how cruel the 11th Doctor actually is. No Doctor before, even the 7th Doctor, has been this cruel. And that's not only us, by the way. I've actually seen that comparison made recently just online between the 7th Doctor and the 11th.
I mean, I do think there is kind of a sort of revisionist history going on here, because I watched the 11th Doctor's final episode live. That was the first episode of Doctor Who that I watched, like, as it aired.
Huh.
And I remember during that time period and leading up to that, everyone was like, man, the 11th Doctor's so fun and goofy. And, you know, people would, like,
really
say the funny things that he says and, like, I'm so funny. But, like, when you start to actually look at his episodes, you start to realize that he kind of has he has a persecution complex for sure. He definitely has a lot of self-loathing going on, and he's definitely just a really like cruel person that he's masking,
right,
with this funny persona. Like he's more than the sum of his parts.
I mean, I don't know if I'm going to describe him like this, and this isn't totally correct, but on the outside he's the 10th Doctor, and on the inside he's the 7th.
Mm-hmm. And I think like this is definitely one of those moments, and we're going to get another one next week, because next week is called the God Complex and talks about, well, the Doctor's God Complex. Because the Doctor
next week looks really cool, by the way. Actually looks pretty scary.
Yeah. I really like next week's episode too. It's Toby Woodhouse coming back.
Hell yeah.
But, you know, the 11th Doctor, like, this is one of those moments. This is the most prominent, I think, moment that we've had so far that really shows how kind of mean the 11th Doctor really is. Because he lies to Rory and Amy, both Amy's, kind of just in order to clean up his mess that, like, he made. And he, you know, when the TARDIS lands, he's all zany. He's like, oh, here we go. And, you know, go out there, Rory, find Amy and come back and be all good. And then as soon as he sees the old Amy, he's just like, I mean, the Doctor looks sad, but you can almost like see the wheels turning in his head, like how he's going to try to fix this.
How do I rewrite this, you know?
Yeah.
And we didn't mention at the end when, you know, Rory's sort of yelling at the Doctor, he's like, you know, if you do this, she'll die. And he says she was never like meant to exist in the first place.
Right. And then he tries to justify it by saying, well, she won't die. She'll never have existed. But she's dying. And also, like, the TARDIS tries to leave as soon as the two Amy's exist, which I think is kind of supposed to be almost foreshadowing for the end when the Doctor reveals that it's not going to work. Because as soon as two Amy's land in the same timeline, the Doctor says, oh, the TARDIS isn't like the paradox, it's trying to leave.
Right.
And it's just like, I'm really glad that Rory's there to call the Doctor out on this, because if they just let this go, that would have been, like, so not okay. And, you know, like, in A Good Man Goes to War, they kind of touch on this too, with the Doctor's like, well, I'm not a good man because I have all these rules. And it's like, okay, yeah, I can see it. But then like this, where he's like, yeah, I lied to you, Rory. There's no way to keep them both. No way. I mean, also I think building on that, not just the Doctor doing that, but then him shifting the decision of which Amy to keep onto Rory, like shifting the responsibility for the whole thing onto Rory.
Amy and Rory, I know the show has sort of been building up to this since 2005 in a way, but Amy and Rory are sort of the first companions who I would call like victims of the Doctor. Mm-hmm. And I think I would go that far as to use that word.
I would.
I mean, parts of their lives have been ruined. Amy had to go through, you know, those 10 years where everyone thought she was insane.
Rory had to live for
2,000 years.
Yeah, Rory had to wait 2,000 years for Amy to come back. Also, side note, kind of shows the difference between Rory and Amy. Rory waited 2,000 years, still loved Amy at the end. Amy got through 36 before she hated.
The Doctor. Like we said, she hates the Doctor, right? Not Rory. She's developed this tough persona that I guess has helped her survive. But it's pretty clear when Rory comes back, she's glad to see him.
Yeah. But like a lot of the things that the Doctor does in this story,
not okay.
Not okay. And I mean, that's the thing, is that partly I'm a little bothered by that because it doesn't really land, because we don't get any consequences from that in this story.
But remember, consequences can be rewritten.
Okay, but we haven't even gotten the consequences the first time.
That line is so like well foreshadowed this era that I'm just shocked. Like I didn't plan any of this, you know, when I said that at the end of the 10th Doctor's run. But like, yeah.
But I mean, we don't have any consequences for this yet.
Yeah,
and we
sure
kind of got some in A Good Man Goes to War when it was revealed the Doctor, like, didn't actually save Melody Pond, but then, like, then the next week it was just revealed that, like, that Amy had grown up with Melody the whole time anyway.
Well, I'm sure, like, as we go into the season finale, a lot of this is going to come back, if not directly, then, like, you know, something similar is going to happen.
Yeah, at least through the Moffatisms where he's like, well, I'm not a good man, I have so many rules, or things like that are thrown into the episode. That's kind of the main thrust of this episode, so to speak. Yeah. In my opinion. And the main thing that I wanted to talk about. I have a note here that says, oh yeah, I'm safe. This was another thing, I didn't realize what this was referring to originally, but the first time when they reveal that there's that disease, Chan 7 or whatever it is, the doctor, when the handbots say that this is a sterile facility, the doctor doesn't say, oh, we're safe. He says, oh, I'm safe. And I immediately picked up on that because I felt like that was just a really selfish way. It kind of showed a selfish undertone to the 11th Doctor that really subtly came through in that line.
Well, the entire we haven't used that word yet, but what this really is just selfishness, right? The Doctor doesn't want this. I mean, in a way, maybe not, because he doesn't want... Because Rory waited the 2,000 years, Amy waited the 12 or whatever it was, and now this Amy waited the 36. He doesn't want that to happen again. He wants to just rewrite it and forget about it. But in a way, that's selfishness, right? To make him, feel better about it.
Yeah, I mean, on the other end of the spectrum, I heard an argument once that all selflessness was actually selfish in disguise, because you do get in general, if you perform a selfless act, you get good feelings from that, and that in its own would make it selfish, but I don't necessarily agree with that.
It's like the Puritan thing, right? Like the elect, right? Where you do these deeds to get into heaven or whatever, or to prove that like you're going to be one of the elect.
But I mean, I definitely think the 11th Doctor is, I think, one of, if not the most selfish Doctor, because especially compared to some of the other Doctors, the 11th Doctor just wants to go back and just change everything. He thinks that he can control the universe. The 10th Doctor came dangerously close to this when he was talking about the Time Lord Victorious. He's like, I control my destiny, but he reined it back in. That was the thing at the end. He was like, you know what, that's not right. And I think it's time for this body to die because I should never reach that point.
You regenerated into someone who reached that point.
Well, I mean, he kind of did. I mean, I know you said it as a joke, but like...
Yeah, he did.
He kind of did. Like, maybe it's not as overt as the 10th Doctor was going, but... And maybe it is pretty subtle, but like the undertones are there that the 11th Doctor just kind of tries to rewrite his mistakes because he feels like he has that power.
Yeah.
That's something that we have another season and a half to analyze and pick apart and beat the dead horse with.
Became a man who would.
Is that a reference to the 10th Doctor's first story? It was like, I never would, or something like that?
Yeah. He says that multiple times, the 10th Doctor. And he tells other people.
Because the 10th Doctor knew where the line was.
I question, though, is the 7th Doctor more selfish than the 11th? Because the 7th Doctor showed absolutely no remorse for any of this. There's a tinge of remorse here with the 11th. He was just like, yep, it was all part of my master plan. I mean, no one died, but... It's like, yep, all part of my master plan, Ace.
I think
we got work to do.
I think to an extent the 7th Doctor was... I think the 7th Doctor was more blatantly selfish. I don't know if you'd say he was more selfish overall.
Yeah, sure.
I think they're both in a race to the bottom.
I mean, let's just say this. He was put into situations where it never ended up mattering as much as it does here.
Well, how about we say this? You haven't seen the rest of the 11th Doctor's run.
You haven't seen how far people can fall until they get to the cheetah planet. Kidding.
If we fight like animals, we'll die like animals. That's all I remember from that story.
Survival is still the best 7th Doctor story.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Yeah. I don't dispute that. On that bombshell revelation, we actually have an email this week. We actually have 2 emails because we weren't able to get the Night Terrors email into our Night Terrors episode, so we'll read that now and then we'll get into... They're both from RG, regular correspondent on Zenith, and who will be joining us on this podcast. Again, she was on our episode this season, if you'll remember.
Doctor's Wife,
and she'll be on next season for Asylum of the Daleks, which is a big episode. Hello, Trust Your Doctor Monsters. This is Night Terrors. Someone needs to buy that child Nightlight. The psychic paper now delivers messages. Apparently, that's not a new thing. If you'll remember, the 10th Doctor gets a message from River Song in Silence in the Library, which is...
I don't remember that, but all right.
That's what called him there, because he's like, I got this message on the psychic paper. I like Rory saying we're dead again. I wouldn't mess with Amy carrying a wooden pot. Doctor Who's all about the biscuits. Love me a jammy dodger. This episode is Buffy level creepy and I like that. I knew they were in the dollhouse. Turns out that was the worst idea Amy has had, to just push past the wooden dollies. Ever notice how dads are awesome in Doctor Who and mums are stupid? Damn it, now I feel like Kippers stay brilliant. RG.
Are dads always awesome and moms stupid? I'm trying to think of any counterexamples.
Well, if you can't think of any counter...
Amy's pretty cool.
Amy's pretty cool. Amy does count as a mother, so...
Yeah.
So is...
Oh, Jackie. Jackie's awesome.
Jackie is awesome. Let's say. We never meet Rose's dad. Oh, we do. Pete Tyler, sorry.
Yeah, he's kind of a chucklehead.
Alternate Universe Pete's pretty cool. Let's be honest. Regular Universe Pete was lame, but Alternate Universe Pete, that's where it's at. The girl who waited. Hello, Trust Your Doctor handbots. Of course, Amy pressed the wrong button. When you think about it, most of the Doctor's companions are very brave. They've really turned the scare factor up this season on Doctor Who. Rory looks cute in glasses. This is using a lot of the ideas from the Doctor's wife, hating someone because they left you, different time streams. Some people don't think Karen Gillan can act. This episode proves that she can. You can actually believe that she's aged and grown more cynical. They've used great aging makeup on Karen. They even got the neck right, which a lot of people forget. Karen Gillan and Arthur Darvill have great chemistry and always bring a good amount of tenderness to their scenes together. The robots are basically doing the same scary repetitive thing that people in the spacesuits did in the library, more recycled ideas. This is the darker side of Doctor Number 11. He's prepared to manipulate people in order to achieve his goals. Stay brilliant, RG. It's actually interesting that you bring up people not thinking Karen Gillan can act, because while I was looking up behind the scenes stuff for this episode, I found out that apparently there were multiple reviews of Series 5 that were like, Karen Gillan is the weakest actor in this cast.
I've never heard any of that.
Apparently that was like a big thing. And then they were like, this episode was the one where a lot of reviewers were like, this is the episode where we finally see Karen Gillan grow into her own as an actress.
Huh. That's really interesting. I don't agree with any of it.
Thanks. I hate it. Other than that, yeah, good points that I think we touched on all of them. Although not Karen Gillan and Arthur Darvill having great chemistry, which I actually think they do.
Yeah, they do.
I think it is important if you're going to have a romantic couple on screen that you cast two people who have chemistry on some level, right?
You know, the recurring cast need to be able to work together regardless of the characters', I think, relationships.
Yeah, but I think you need to have this convincing chemistry if you're playing a married couple, right?
Sure.
It's got to be something deeper there if you get married.
Maybe
it's kind of like how Tom Baker and Lalla Ward played a convincing old married couple on Doctor Who because they did get married.
Kind of like how Ian and Barbara felt married because Jacqueline Hill and
William
Russell maybe had a good chemistry.
Oh.
What, you thought I was going to say, like, you know...
Had a behind-the-scenes fling?
Yeah. No. I mean, I think they had good chemistry, which is why that sort of comes off that way. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's a general thing or if we're the only people who are like, yeah, it kind of feels like they were a married couple, which I know we've touched on multiple times.
I don't know. I know that my married couple comment about Tom Baker and Lalla Ward was definitely supposed to be a joke, just because the two companions, the Doctor and his companion, felt like they bickered a lot like married couples. Especially with Romana 2. But anyway, yeah, good points. And thank you for reaching out and sending us those emails. And other than that, you, the listener, can email us at thedoctor@decorativevegetable.com. Questions, comments, concerns, angry rants, love letters, your thoughts on handbots. You can
the least controversial thing in this episode.
You can also include your thoughts as like a postscript on the Doctor's actions in this episode, but I really want to hear your thoughts on the handbots. You can find us on YouTube at Decorative Vegetable, and you can find us on Apple Podcasts and Google Play at Trust Your Doctor. Be sure to leave a rating if you liked this show.
Check us on Facebook, Trust Your Doctor. Like us on Facebook. Also check us on Twitter at TYD Podcast, and follow us on Twitter. And next time, we're watching The God Complex. But until then, the end.